Hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights Live Show. I am Katie, joined by Chris and John. Hey fellas.
Hello. Almost at it.
Almost
Almost
had
at
it. This week we are doing an AI image generation bake-off. And so we spend a lot of time talking about generative AI in terms of what it can do with text. And, those are some of the primary use cases, but there's a lot of people using generative AI to create images. And when generative AI first hit the market, in a more mainstream way a couple of years ago. I don't mean to say it's new, but when it hit it in a way that was accessible to people, everyone was trying to figure out, "Oh, how do I generate an image with it? Why does it look so poor? Why does the hand have 8 fingers when it should have 5? Or why are there 3 people when I asked for 1?" And so there was a lot of issues with it. And prompting for images is a different skill set than prompting for text. So today, what we thought we would do is we would go over a sampling of the available image generation tools and do what we like to call a bake off. So, Chris, where would you like to start today?
Let's start with the image that started this conversation. And the image that started this conversation, Katie, is this splendid, wonderful image that was a part of the first version of Katie GPT. This was made in DALL-E 3, which is part of OpenAI's offering. And the prompt for this was a professional blonde woman with black rectangular glasses wearing a green hoodie typing on a Samsung smartphone. The woman has a cheerful demeanor. Now, Katie, I know you wanted to talk specifically about this image and what kind of happened here.
And first of all, I'm not wearing my green hoodie today. I'm wearing a gray hoodie. So that's sort of not that, but that's not the problem. So granted, this is the avatar for Katie GPT. And recently I had an opportunity to give her a closer look because my friend Ann Handley was asking about it. And I admittedly had never really taken a look at the image. I just sort of saw in a very small scale a blonde woman wearing a hoodie, blah, blah, blah. And our prompt was fairly generic as well, a blonde woman, so on and so forth. But then when you actually look at the image, the AI made a lot of assumptions and took a lot of liberties. Primarily, this image looks like she has had a heck of a lot of plastic surgery. The image very much evokes fillers and Botox and definitely an underweight, someone probably dying for a cheeseburger but is going to deny herself one. Like, we didn't give those prompts. So we didn't give those directions to the AI. The AI said, "Well, you want an image of a woman. Here's what I think a woman should look like." And I very quickly had a strong reaction to this. Now, granted, she has the right amount of fingers, but the fingers are long and bony. Everything feels off about this. And I don't know that if we had given it more direction to say, a woman who hasn't had fillers or a woman who hasn't had plastic surgery, it would have done much better. I think we would have gone the opposite direction with some assumptions about what a woman should and shouldn't look like. And so that was where this conversation started. So while, yes, this is technically Katie GPT, I am going to be the first one to say this looks nothing like me.
So you're right that all AI models have biases built into them because of the training data. They were trained on different image sets and different image libraries. And depending on the system you use will determine its biases because they were all trained on different imagery. This is a slide from one of our keynote talks that we give. This is using Meta's AI generator. And you can see the 2-word prompts that we used to generate each of these images. These 2-word prompts, you should never have a prompt this short. But to illustrate the point, we say a lawyer, a senator, a surgeon, an accountant, a nurse, a secretary, a teacher, a librarian. There are a lot of assumptions that these tools are making. You can see there's a very clear gender bias. There is a very clear racial bias in these images. And of course, all the usual things that are wrong in these images. Part of that is prompting because these prompts are woefully insufficient. And part of it is bias in the training data that the tools were given. So to effectively deal with this, we have to do two things. Number one, we have to understand how an image generator works, because it's not the same as a language generator. And then two, what we need to do to work with the specific tools that are out there. And so today we're going to do a bake-off with 4 of the 5 tools. Now, if you would like to skip ahead to the end of our program today, we have a very comprehensive guide we actually put together for this live stream. Go to trustinsights.ai/image prompts, and you can get the 10-page PDF of the prompt structures for all 5 systems, along with a custom GPT that we'll be talking about in a bit. So the first thing we need to figure out is, what are these systems looking for? What we did was we took over 100 different articles about generative AI image models from all these different systems, and about 40 different YouTube videos of people talking about their ultimate mid-journey prompt and all that stuff, the usual stuff. Stuffed it into Google Gemini and said, what do all these different perspectives have in common? And assemble some templates. What I want to call out, and we're not digging into the specifics, but what I want to call out is, for each of these systems, they have a lot of opportunities. So let's look at the one for DALL-E 3. These are the things that good DALL-E prompts have in common: an image command, an image type. Is it a photo? Is it an illustration? What's the main subject? What are the descriptive modifiers of the main subject? So in our case, we were talking about a professional blonde woman. What's the setting? Where is this located? What are the style cues? Photorealistic. What are the key features that you want to emphasize? What are there specifics about those key features? What are the analogies or comparisons? DALL-E in particular is very sensitive to anything copyrighted. So you can say Van Gogh, you cannot say Ansel Adams. Just as a note there. Color schemes, lighting and composition, and negative prompts. The reason that this system is, and to be fair, all of the image models have this much detail, is because underneath the hood, the way they've been trained is they've been given a gazillion and a half different images. Whether or not they may have permission to use them is a separate show. And the captions for those images were either provided or were automatically generated. And then there's a very small language model that sits in front of it that essentially matches back and forth with the captions to try and match essentially what the image should look like. Conceptually, if you've ever heard the expression, Michelangelo carved the statue of David by taking a block of marble and chipping away everything that wasn't David, that's how a diffuser image model actually works. It has a pile of words. There's a pile of statistical association about what those words are. Dog on a skateboard wearing a tutu. And then from its knowledge, it has to chip away at all the pixels in this image that are not that representation. So that's why the prompt structure for image models is so weird, especially when you look at a prompt, for example, like Midjourney. Midjourney's prompts get all kinds of wild. They look like hieroglyphics practically sometimes, or arcane spells from a spell book, because the way they've trained the model is very specific to those inputs.
I don't think the casual user was prepared to have to think about all of these different elements. But it certainly explains why, if you open up an AI image generator and you say, I'm looking for a picture of a dog on jet skis, in the Pacific Ocean, you're going to get something that maybe resembles that, but probably not, because there's a lot of specifics in here that tell me, similar to using generative AI for text, for language tasks, you really need to know what you're asking for.
Yes, exactly. It's like sort of the genie of fairy tales. Like, you get what you ask for, and so if you ask for the wrong thing, you will get not what you wanted. So let's do our first test before we talk about prompting. Let's do our first test and take these 4 different systems, and we're going to take this original prompt and feed it to all 4 systems just to see what we get now. Because one of the other things about Katie GPT's avatar was it was generated with Dolly about a year ago, I think. So all the models have changed since then. So let's start with create an image, a photo of a professional one. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a photo of a professional woman with black rectangular glasses, wearing a green hoodie, typing on a Samsung smartphone. The woman has a cheerful demeanor. I'm going to start with Chat GPT. We're going to move over into Midjourney. We're going to go into Google Gemini, and we'll go into Meta AI. Meta AI requires the Imagine tag up front. So let's see what we get. ChatGPT seems to have created a nothing.
Well, you didn't specify that the lights had to be on in the room.
ChatGPT, you need to try this again. Yeah, this is no good.
So if you say, but the lights also have to be on in the room, maybe she'll appear.
My goodness. You think about that one. So let's see what Midjourney came up with. Midjourney came up with 4 different variations here. Yeah, and you can obviously there's refinement buttons, but that's what Midjourney came up with. Those are certainly an improvement over the existing KG.
They're all fairly generic looking.
Yes.
Which is good because we didn't specify anything about ethnicity, which is interesting because we said a blonde woman. We didn't say a blonde Caucasian woman. So
Correct.
It made that assumption, which to me is something that kind of sticks out of like, if you say blonde, you must mean a white woman, which is absolutely not true in real life. So Correct. That to me, that's sort of my first, I'm just going to file that away for a discussion point later on in this episode.
Yep. The lights are still not on.
Listen, this is true of Katie GPT as well. The lights are off. Nobody's home. She's hoping you don't notice.
Let's see what Gemini came up with. Gemini came up with this is Google's Imagen 3 model. So here we have, again, same assumptions.
Yeah, the hair is, well, also the hair is very light blonde. So when you say blonde, they're thinking like a white blonde. The hair is straight, and the woman is, in all of the images, arguably very thin and very white.
Yep. And let's see what Meta came up with. So Meta came up with very similar. Let's see if ChatGPT. That's just it. I think it's just on vacation today.
Yeah, that's fine.
So these are Meta's version. Now, again, compared to a year ago, they do have the correct number of fingers, which is a large improvement.
The image quality has drastically improved. I will say that these images look more human than the original image, which definitely had a bit of a space alien effect to the facial features. John's like, yep, she sure did. But the biases have not improved.
And a good chunk of that has to do with the prompt. So the first question I have is, for this prompt in particular, what would you change, keeping in mind all of the different, putting aside, technical things like lighting and stuff like that, what would you change to make this prompt more robust?
Man, I'm almost afraid to, because I'm nervous about what the output is going to be. But I mean, I think the first thing I would do is, if it's meant to be a photo of me personally, then I need to give it more detail about my physical appearance. And so maybe it's, create a photo of a professional blonde woman in her 40s. Because all of the other thing is, all of these images skew really young, which is flattering, but let's be realistic about this. So a blonde in her 40s, of average build, so that doesn't look like I'm emaciated, with black rectangular glasses, that's fine. If we're saying a blonde woman with long wavy hair. It's sort of, and I'm not changing your prompt drastically, but I'm trying to give it more, detail so that, again, if it's meant to be someone who looks like me, then I have to give it that information.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing I guess I would say is with a round face, because again, all of these faces are very angular. Um, is there anything obvious that I'm missing?
So here is where what is true in language models is also true of image models, particularly today's multimodal models. If you want a better prompt, you are better off bringing data to the party,
Mhm.
because a lot of the time it's very difficult for us to encapsulate how we want to describe something. It can be very, very
Yeah,
challenging. Um, so
I'm
what in the
struggling.
Right. So one of the things we could do here, let's go ahead and I'm just going to change views for a moment. And I am going to screen grab you, Katie, off of the live stream. And
Make
we
sure I'm
can
not
go,
making faces.
well, and we can go into a tool like a chat GPT and say, and ask it a question like, how would you describe this image in terms of a prompt to be used for generative AI to create a similar image?
And now
And so,
while that's processing, I wanna talk a little bit about why I was hesitant to give it more descriptors, if that's okay, Chris.
of course, absolutely.
So obviously, we saw the bias with, a professional blonde woman, and it very much created like the Botox and the fillers and, someone who's a thinner build. So, as I'm sort of describing myself, I'm talking about an average build, a round face, someone in her 40s. And, perhaps it's my own bias, but my concern is that it's going to return something that's very unflattering. And I'm almost scared to see what that looks like, you know, if you give it those kinds of prompts because of how much bias is built in to AI. And so that's sort of where I could certainly describe myself, but I don't think I would be describing myself in the way that the language model would understand.
So Gemini says you're a young woman with long brown hair and glasses sitting in a gaming chair in front of a microphone. You're wearing a gray hoodie with earbuds. The background is slightly out of focus and includes a bookshelf with plants, framed pictures, and decorative pillows. The lighting is soft and natural. The overall mood is casual and comfortable, suggesting a podcasting or streaming setup.
So it's funny because it is a gaming chair, because these chairs are meant to be sat in for long periods of time, much like when you work from home and run your own business.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly. So that's what the model saw
yeah,
in this context.
I don't disagree with that.
Yep.
Um, we don't need to, sorry for the pun, split hairs over the color of my hair. Like it's it's fine if they want to call it brown, it's blonde, it's dark blonde, whatever. Like that to me doesn't matter because the rest of it, it actually got pretty correct.
Mm-hmm. So here's what we can do. We have that will add more precision to this. We can take so as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have this guide that we put together of all of these different prompt templates. Rather than sit here and try and pick this apart piece by piece, what we can do is have AI do it. Say, here's the templates,
Mhm.
here's what we know to be true. You do it because it's too much of a pain in the butt for us to do it ourselves. So let's do this. Let's take this. I'm hesitant to choose ChatGPT because it's having a real hard time today. Um,
ChatGPT doesn't wanna play along
it,
today.
it really doesn't want to play along today. So let's you. Did I make a gem out of this? I don't remember if I made a gem out of this or not. I did make a gem.
And those who don't know, a gem is your own custom model. So, We've done this on other episodes. If you want to see what those look like, you can go to trustinsights.ai/YouTube, find the So What playlist, and you can see how to build your own gem. But a gem is essentially similar to a custom GPT. It's a large language model that you have created the system instructions for that you can now interact with.
So this is the instructions for our gem. This is essentially the prompt guide that we put together that you'll be able to download with some basic instructions saying you're going to get input of what the user wants to make, and the user is going to specify a platform, and then you, AI, are going to find the appropriate template, add in the relevant missing details to the extent that you can, and then talk the user through your choices, and then spit this out. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and start this gem. And let's ChatGPT still is a little on the iffy side. I'm going to take the original prompt that we started with here, and I'm going to augment it with the results that we just got from AI Studio. Am I on the right one? Yes, I am. Nope.
I was going to say, we actually haven't tested the updated prompt to see what would happen.
Right. So we're going to, well, do you want to test the updated prompt as is before we?
I would say let's test it just to show how it's still, I mean, we know it's still insufficient, but now it's just the curiosity.
Okay.
So as to the difference between this.
Midjourney. We'll start a new chat with Gemini. We'll start a new chat with Meta AI. And ChatGPT, how you feeling today? The lights are still off, probably. Midjourney is working on it. Gemini is working on it. Meta AI came up with this. So,
I mean, this woman has noticeably more wrinkles. Her fillers may have fallen a little bit on the bottom left-hand side. I mean, AI, get it together. It's interesting. The top left-hand one is still by far the youngest. The bottom left is definitely someone in her 50s or 60s, which there is nothing wrong with that. But it's the way that AI is interpreting age. That's what I was worried about.
Yep. Also, what the hell is she typing on?
Oh, yeah.
What is that? That's not a
I don't know, John, you're the techie. You should, is it a very, very, it's either a very large phone or a very tiny laptop.
No, I've seen
it still off here.
Like there's a lot of, when I was looking at podcasting gear, it'll just make up weird gear that, like weird boxes with 5 wires coming out of it, that's just a portmanteau of, 5 devices. So that's like a sort of a phone, laptop, tablet thing.
So this is Gemini's pass at this.
Interesting. This one, to me, so far, is the best representation of a normal looking image of what you would expect. Like, there's nothing overly offensive about it. She looks about age appropriate, but she's not riddled with wrinkles and we said average build, round face, and it didn't take it to an extreme place. So this so far is my front runner.
And then here is Midjourney's.
What were you going to say, John?
Well, I was going to say that last one is the first one that I would look at and not question if it was AI. That looks like could easily be a straight up photo of somebody.
And what was the last one?
And here's Midjourney's, the top row.
They don't look drastically different from the bottom row. I mean, this could all be the same woman at different points during the day, which I feel like Midjourney is just like, okay, you want a blonde woman? Here's a blonde woman. This is all I got in the bank. Like, this is all you're going to get.
Yeah, like it's been a little weird that across all the models, they are all looking pretty much the same.
And again, that has to do a lot with the input of that specific prompt. So what we can do now is take this prompt and we can put it inside of our gem, and what we're going to see is some of the language differences. So we're going to say the platform is Meta AI. Here is the prompt for you to optimize. And I'm going to take, so I'm not going to take the Gemini feedback one. I'm going to actually take the same one that we've been working with, Katie.
Okay.
And have it, and it's going to step through the process of what does it know. So the original prompt, here's the template: mapping and augmentation, explicitly stated main subject, descriptive modifiers, setting detail, it's modern office. It's going to add in well lit, medium shot, ethnicity descent not specified, so we'll omit it. And then see, here's the final prompt. So this goes into Meta. So let's see if Meta's AI can do this well.
But also, you
back.
hear that, Chat GPT? Well lit. Turn the lights on.
Okay, so let's get that cranking. Let's now say, now rewrite the same for Gemini Imagen 3. There's the original prompt. It's going to go through the Imagen format. 16:9 contemporary. Let's take that over into Google. Let's start a new chat. Okay, next we want to do the same for Midjourney. I'm going to start the same original prompt. There's our template, main subject, well lit.
Well lit. Listen,
Uh-huh.
apparently that is a qualifier that you have to include. Is you can put all the images you want, but you got to specify that the lights are on in the room.
Exactly. So let's put this. It says, prompt starting with in the web interface. That's a Discord command. So let's put in this. All right. So while that's sharing, let's. What the heck? We're gonna try it.
All right.
Rewrite the prompt for Dolly. We'll see if maybe this will get the lights to turn on.
Oh man, sometimes you just got to work in the dark, and it's okay.
Exactly. Final prompt.
So while those are generating, what's interesting is when generative AI became a bit more mainstream a couple years ago, there were services that allowed you to upload your headshot. It would generate like 20 additional headshots of you, but you had to give it enough for the model to work from. So you had to have like 6 to 8 images of yourself for reference, but then it would regenerate your image. Those are sort of more user-friendly services, but I assume the way that those models work are roughly the same as what you're describing here in the live stream.
In most cases, those services are built on top of a foundation image model like Dolly, or the probably more like anything like Stable Diffusion, because Stable Diffusion as an open source model is much lower cost to operate. So if you're trying to run a startup, you're going to pick the cheapest. The lights are still not on at OpenAI.
Well,
let's see what Meta came up with. So this is what Meta came up with the revised prompt.
Okay.
It's better than the previous attempt. It's still not great.
It's still not great, no.
Right. Gemini came up with this with the revised prompt, which is actually a little bit better.
It is. I would agree that this one, again, so far seems the most you wouldn't blink an eye to be like, is that AI or is that a person?
Exactly.
And is that an age-appropriate person?
Right. And Midjourney is getting closer, but still not quite right.
Well, I would disagree. I would say it's getting farther away because in the top left, you have a 12-year-old. In the top right, I'm not really sure what's happening there. Actually, I'm not really sure what's happening in any of them because now it's like, woman? What is woman? Like these look worse, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do you think, John?
These are still treading over in weird land. Yeah. Like every one of these, I'm like, yeah, no, there's something not right with these shots.
Exactly. So for this particular bake-off, Gemini's Imagen 3 model seems to have done the best. Now, when it comes to image generation, remember that each model is going to have its own strengths and weaknesses. So some will be good at illustration and art. Others will be good at painting. Others will be good at photorealistic images. The lights will just be off permanently.
Well, and I know we tried to do it with OpenAI, but one of the things to me that sort of sticks out is if you're looking to sort of do this activity that we're doing, when you have an image of the real person, we haven't given, except for OpenAI, an image of me as a point of reference to say it should look like this person,
Mm-hmm.
which to me sort of seems like the missed opportunity. Now, for a lot of stuff, you're going to be needing to create something net new, but you can give it, just like you give these models for language tasks, data points and references and whatever training data that you have. You would want to do the same for the images and say this is the style of image, or this is the style of person, or whatever the thing is you're trying to create. Like, this is a dog, this is the dog breed that I want to create images of.
Exactly. And ideally, you would do so in the native format of the model that you want to use. So if we go back to let me go back to my screen sharing thing. If we go back to this and we go back to the instructions that are in the prompt template, I can give those instructions to the model and say, first, here is some information about generative AI image generation by individual system templates. Read through this and respond okay if you understand it. And we put in our data, and it should just say okay. Now, to what you were saying earlier, Katie, we can take this image and say, from this image, construct a prompt for the Midjourney system to faithfully replicate this image as close as possible in the Midjourney template.
And so you might be wondering, well, what is the use case? You already have an image of yourself. Maybe you don't have a professional headshot image of yourself, but you have like this. This happens to be a screen grab. This is a way for you to start to play around with, could I make headshots for myself while I'm also getting skilled up on how to better use generative AI or prompting for image generation, because you know what you're supposed to look like. So it's actually a really good A/B test to say, well, does it look like me or not? And that's going to help you not only evaluate the different models to figure out which one works best for the style of image that you like, but also to help, oh boy, uh, oh my goodness, skill up on, Lord, I forgot what I was saying. This is
right. Well, so what's happening? So this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. This is the diffusion process. What is happening is it is taking that prompt and is trying to chip away at everything that isn't in that prompt to come up with an answer. And so based on what we got Gemini 1.5 to construct for a Midjourney prompt, this is what it came up with.
All right, John.
I like at the bottom right the seldom seen triple microphone.
Oh boy. I mean, let me ask you straight, John. Do any of these resemble me?
If I had to pick one, the bottom right is closest. But I also love the top right using the pop filter as a light shield. That's an interesting take.
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, at least they all look human, and
That
To
is another
Mid
one. I would say all of them pass the human test. Like
they all look human, and to Midjourney's credit, they're not all identical looking, like, replicas of themselves. It's
yeah,
not like the Stepford Wife clones of the previous images.
right.
Yep. And so, to your point, Katie, reverse engineering off data you already have is a good idea. It's a good way to use to get these tools to work with the data that exists and turn it into something more useful. So, as we're finding out across the spectrum in all forms of generative AI, the more data you bring, the better, and
Mhm.
B, the more specific your prompts are, especially specific to the system and the model you're using, the better the performance you're going to get. So we got better performance out of Midjourney by taking existing data and then essentially reverse engineering a prompt from that data in the Midjourney format.
And, it's interesting because while those images didn't l I don't think they looked like me, we only gave it one reference point, and I think that's really where you want to figure out, like, if you're doing this kind of exercise, like, this is me on a Thursday afternoon after I had dental surgery this morning, and, I'm not ready for a professional photo to be taken. So there's, only so much it's gonna do with the images. So if you wanna also give it other versions, other, data points to reference that are different, if you don't like the results, like, okay, then you need to give it better data, I think is sort of the long-winded point that I'm making is,
Mm-hmm.
if you only give it one reference point and you don't like the results, you need more reference points.
Exactly. And again, more data is better. Now, some of the systems, particularly Flux One, which I wanted to show on the live stream today, but we can't because I run it locally and it consumes 100% of my CPU. Would not be able to have a live stream at the same time. Can take a raw image as your starting point and then essentially upsample it, turn it into other stuff. So you can for some of the systems, you can start with a starting image and then build backwards from that starting image into something that is more usable. So if you have, when you were talking about the headshot generator, that's
Mhm,
essentially what those things do is they take their best guess at a prompt from an
mhm.
image and then tune it up to say like, let's turn this into a professional headshot of this person.
What do you think, John? You gonna make your clone army?
Yeah, it's an interesting use. I mean, if I had to come up with fake things, I think the big thing would be it is as good as stock photo. If I needed to pull up,
Mhm.
give me just a rando, red-haired guy working at a laptop, it can definitely get close enough that I don't need to go to one of the other providers. So that's good. But yeah, it's still I definitely I, both the triple microphone and the light pop filter, that kind of stuff. You get back on the weird side, and you have to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't run south.
Yep. Question in the comments. Torbjorn was asking, is it possible to generate video with good resemblance of a specific person? Yes. These are not the tools to do that. There are several companies out there. HeyGen is probably the best known one, where you upload 2 minutes of video and then go through an ID process where they validate that you are who you say you are. And they require you to have, government ID and do a visual scan of yourself to prove that you have the rights to use your image, and then that can very clearly replicate eerily so a person and you can give it a text prompt and it will then create the video from that file. There are versions that do not do that, have the identity check, and we will not be discussing them.
But on previous episodes, we've talked about, using generative AI to generate, podcast episodes, for example. And again, if you want to check those out, you can go to trustinsights.ai/YouTube and find the So What playlist where we've talked about those things in a different context. And so, um, I do think it is interesting to see in a short amount of time the strides that generative AI has made because while, yes, some of those images were still on the weird side, they all looked human. They all had the right amount of features. They all had 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. And, the hands weren't visible in all of the images, but, like, the proportions for the most part were, pretty regular. So I think that alone just shows how far, generative AI image generation has come in a short amount of time.
Exactly. And so what I would encourage folks to do is if you would like to mess around. So one of the things that we did, OpenAI is DALL-E is not playing nicely, but the custom GPTs are. We have a custom GPT called the AI image generation prompt generator. I probably should have named that something else.
Probably.
But what it does is exactly what we showed on the show today. So you can give it a starting prompt, tell it what platform to use, and it will walk through the same logic and come up with a revised prompt that more closely adheres to what the individual systems are doing. So if that's of interest to you, you can get that. It's totally free. It's just within the PDF, and we'd encourage you to download that. All we do need to do is to fill out a form. Any other things that I forgot to mention?
Not that you forgot to mention, but if you're using image generation, I feel like it's sort of akin to describing something to a sketch artist. And so, if you're trying to construct a prompt, imagine that the AI on the other side is that sketch artist. So you have to say, well, it's, a man of this race with these features, with this hairstyle. And if you're getting frustrated that it's not giving you back exactly what you wanted, you have to look at the information you gave it and say, did I give it enough information? And where is it filling in the blanks? And I think similar to the exercises that we do with language-based prompts and priming is you really want to say, this is the information I have, and iterate with it and say, what am I missing? What questions do you have before you just go ahead, give it a prompt. It doesn't give you what you want. You get frustrated, you close it, you walk away. AK, what I do. So you have to actually prime it to say, this is what I have. What else do you need? What information can I provide that would get me a better result? So treat it the same way you would with a language prompt in that respect.
I would agree. If you think about this prompt breakdown that's in our guide is essentially the requirements gathering for the image. These are the requirements: descriptive modifiers, scene details, lighting, style cues, art move at artistic level. All this stuff is stuff that ideally you think about first, or you have a conversation with a GPT or a gem or whatever, to go back and forth and say, well, I actually want to be like this, so that by the time it does generate the prompt, or you write your own prompt, you've taken into account all the requirements that are supposed to be there.
I'm looking forward to seeing the John Wall version with finger guns and 8 microphones, because part of me is curious, if you say finger guns, is that slang, and would it actually give you back fingers that are guns, or would it know finger guns? So I feel like there's a lot more experimentation to be done. And John, I can't wait to see it.
There's plenty of places to go. Shooting at you.
I think that's it for today's show. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.